Hey, what's going on, folks? Jeff here. Just going to explain a little quick tutorial on how to install Linux in a chroot on your phone. So I've got my Android phone here. It's a Nexus S, but it should work on nearly any, if not all, Android phones on the market currently. All you need is a rooted phone. So I'm going to assume you know a little bit about Linux here. So a chroot is something that you can do on a Linux system that lets you run a it's kind of like a virtual machine within Linux, but it's not quite the same. But basically what you're going to do is we're going to install it alongside of Android. So you can see here my phone currently has Linux installed. It's not currently running, but it does not at all remove any of the functionality of my phone as an Android device. So what I can do is I can go in here, and these are the apps here. I've just kind of put them in a folder here for you guys that you need. Obviously Super User, that's just kind of to remind you that you need a rooted phone. If you don't have a rooted phone, this I can almost guarantee you won't work. You'll also need a terminal device. I use ConnectBot. You can also use ADB if you want to plug it into your computer, or any other number of terminal devices. There's also the terminal, Linux terminal, which is another program that you can grab. The other one you want is Linux Installer. Now this is a great little installer that Galula software put together, and it's really cool, but there are some issues with it that I'm going to work you through. So first thing you want to do is you want to open it up, and the very first thing you want to do is go into your setup. So leave the stuff at the top alone. If you're a really advanced user, you can do it without using a loop device, without using a loop file. There's no real reason to, as long as your phone supports loop files, which again I haven't encountered a phone that hasn't. So that's a great little thing. Just leave that on. But if you do want the advanced usage, you can turn that off. But it can be harmful to your phone. But I'll just leave that alone for now. Leave it like that. So, as Linux people, you are Linux people, right? Because otherwise this is a useless tutorial for you. You'll understand things like your preferred distro, and your distribution version. So you can choose what type of Debian you want, and you can choose between both Debian and Ubuntu. Your host name you can choose here, and you can choose things like your domain as well. Chroot point, that's something you probably want to leave alone. By default it's the /data/local/mount/linux, and unless you have a real good reason to change it, there's no reason to. Avoid mounting it to things like, he says the SD card or data/data or any other stupid place. But if you know what you're doing and you want to mount it somewhere else for some reason, you can select it in there. Loop file, by default it's going to /mount/SD card /linux.loop. That's the file itself. That's probably not the best place. If you have a lot of storage space on your phone itself rather than on the SD card, I would recommend doing that. Anytime you unmount your SD card, if the chroot is running, that'll fuck shit up. So you have to remember to always stop and unmount the chroot anytime you unmount your SD card. And because of the way that Android works, anytime you connect to your computer and choose USB sharing or whatever to connect it to the computer, to mount it to your computer, it unmounts it from the phone. Now there are workarounds. There's actually I think there's an app out there even for it, but there's scripts that you can put on here that let you dual mount it to your computer and to your phone so that it doesn't unmount from your phone whenever you plug it in. But for the most part, it's probably better if you can to put your loop file on your on your internal memory. And there's again, there's some recommendations on where not to put it. So obviously don't put it in your temp folder, and don't put it in SD or data/data. File size is how big your virtual environment is going to be. So you can choose as much or as little as you want. 300 is the least. Yeah, it must be greater than 300 megs, because otherwise you won't have any space for Linux. And your maximum loop depth, I'll get back to that. But basically, higher is slower, but might be better. But I'll get back to that. And then skip all this junk here, because you don't really need that. I recommend against binding Android, because that lets you basically the CH environment can read and write to the root directory of your actual phone, and it seems really great, but it can cause problems. Definitely only do that if you're going to a loop device, though. So yeah, but again, yeah, only if you're on a loop device and if you're on the internal memory would I recommend even thinking about turning on Bind Android, because otherwise you can get stuff like because otherwise you have a link to your root directory, and you'll do things like if you unmount your SD card, it might unmount everything. The same thing can go on with like your data/data. So yeah, just unless you're really safe about where you put everything else, I wouldn't recommend that. There's no real major advantages to that, but that I can really think of, aside from like having Linux control over all your other stuff. But you can just do that through your computer anyways. I don't know, you might want to do that. Whatever. Anyway, the next two ones you want to put on, ignore the rest, use the embedded busy box, there's no reason not to. Screen always on, you want to leave that on. But you want to allow write to system, and you want to allow the, let's do that, the /dev, the dev/exec, allow it to remount for that. And the rest of this you can skip, so you're now ready to go. So if you go back, and you'll see a thing that says create target loop. So you've now set all your information for your loop, you click that, it'll chug away for a second, it'll create a loop. I'm not actually going to do it because I've already done it. Then it'll give you the option to format the loop. So you click that, it'll chug away for a sec, and then it'll drop you to this screen here where it says mount loop. So you can click mount loop, and it'll start to mount that loop. Now if it doesn't work, you just go back in there into your settings and just change your the mount point dev to a higher number, like I mentioned before. It goes it goes a bit slower. I didn't notice a big difference. But yeah, once you're mounted, it'll give you this little screen here. Yours won't say reinstalled, it'll say install. You just click that. Now there's an error that you might get here, which is something that I got, and if you have a similar phone to mine, you might get the same issue, which is the app itself is not able to remount certain partitions without no dev, and it's not able to continue because those partitions are still there mounted as no dev. So what you can do, if you have that problem, and actually let me unmount that first. Stop loop dev, release that loop. So what you can do if you're having that problem is open up your command line of choice, which I will do as soon as that's done. There we go. So open up your command line of choice. If you're using ConnectBot, click local. And I'm just going to grab my phone. So I'm going to sue so I can get super user. And then I'm going to type, it's actually really hard to type like around this camera, so bear with me here. So mount pipe grep. This is really awkward typing through the camera screen. Let me see if I can look over my camera. There we go. Grep, and then SD card. Or actually, you can even just do, if you don't know what partition it is that's having problems, you can just type no dev, and it'll show you those. I knew that mine was the SD card, so SD card, and oh, why did that not do anything? Oh, because I typed that wrong. So let's try that again. Mount grep, mount pipe grep SD card. There we go. So it spits up a bunch of stuff back at you. If you're a Linux person, you know what all that stuff means. That's that's the mount information basically. So it shows you, the first thing it'll show you is the hardware mount point. So it'll show you there, it says /dev /block / bunch of junk. Then it'll tell you what the actual directory is, so /mount /SD card, which is the directory we're trying to remount. It'll give you the type, which is a VFAT, and then it'll give you all the flags that are on that. So you can see, in my case, it's got rewrite and a bunch of other things. And if it says no dev, that's what you want to mess with, okay? Because that's the one you want to remount without no dev. You want to be able to use that. So you can just go mount, whichever one you have selected, mount, and then tac O for your options. And here you're going to put remount, comma, dev, and then you put in your your type, so tac T. I'm trying to remember the mount command here. So tac T type is vfat, and then you put in the rest of it. So your actual directory, which is /dev/block/ a bunch of junk. I'm not going to actually type it all out, but it's those first two things that you see there. And you click enter, and it should just pop you back right to just a blank a line there. And then you can if you want to see it again, just go mount, grep, etc. Just grep the results of mount, searching for the SD card. You'll see that that flag is now off. And that is good, because now you can go back to your Linux installer and follow the last step. So the last step will be installing, and that'll chug away quite a while. So make sure you have an internet connection that's not going to die if you don't have like a data connection on your phone. But yeah, it should download all the stuff you need and finish up with one last one last line it gives you, which is basically installing the script that lets you load it. And then you're all ready. So the installer app now is actually not needed anymore. You can delete that app and it will not ruin your install. If you subscribe and pay for like the full app, it gives you the option to have it, yeah, you can see at the bottom here, if you register, you can give it the option to start up your Linux chroot, like when you start up your phone. Because as it is now, when your phone shuts down, like fully shuts down, it'll get rid of that. It'll unmount all that, and you won't be able to use that without coming back in. I don't find that to be a huge issue right now, because I generally basically turn it on, do what I need to do, and turn it off. But you know, for people who want that, it's there. But now you can come into your terminal of choice here, and I'm going to click clear, or I'm not going to type clear. There we go, clear. Clear my screen there. So now I just go with my command linux chroot, or whatever you chose there. You'll see it mounts up. You can't really see it on my screen here, sorry about that, but you'll see it mounts that and drops me to my Linux install. So from here I can obviously go apt get update. I feel like I typed that wrong. No, looks like I typed it right. And you'll see, oh wow, apt. And obviously you got aptitude on here, so you can just do whatever you want. I prefer using apt-get to using aptitude. I don't know why. But from here you can install nmap, you can install a VNC server if you want to, and then get a VNC app on your Linux phone, because you don't have DirectX. Like if you're looking for X apps, anything that's using your GUI, you won't have any direct way of doing that, but you can install VNC server right here, and then VNC viewer somewhere in here, and you know, all your apps that use that will allow you'll just then use it through VNC, which is pretty neat. I've also heard that you can install the Android SDK on here, which is pretty cool, because you can then develop apps for your phone on your phone. Probably better for people with tablets, because on a phone it's obviously kind of awkward to type like a full program out and do all sorts of stuff with GUI and stuff, but it is possible. But more importantly is cool little apps like nmap, ettercap, stuff like that, stuff that you can actually deploy, stuff that's more useful in a portable situation. I've also got Perl on here and GCC, so I can put together quick Perl scripts, or you know, C programs, or C scripts, as some hardcore people like to do, scripting in C. But yeah, you have a full environment to work in, and yeah, it's Linux. And if you just want to exit, you can just go, ooh, let me see if I can do this. It'll give you this little notice here when you're actually exiting the chroot, which allows you, if you click yes, you'll actually unmount that chroot. There you go. Drops you back to your actual Android prompt there, and now you can do whatever you want. What am I saying? You can do whatever you want. You can now unmount your SD card and not have to worry about it if you have your loop file on your SD card. If you don't have to worry about that anyway. But there you go. Linux fully running on a Android phone, and it's really quite easy. Hope you enjoyed.